Good, excuse me, good evening, beautiful people of the You Create the Dream page, and welcome to Awake in the Dream. This is our fortnightly call. I am just wanting to make sure that everything is working well and you can see me. I don't see me. Where am I? I am on the You Create the Dream page, double checking that I'm on the right page. I am. Okay, interesting. I still don't see myself. Ah, thank you so much, Libby. It's lovely. I get these messages saying, I see you. So here I am, still not appearing on my phone, but I have no doubt that I will at some point. So I will check back because it is the only way that I can actually see all the comments. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Thought I saw myself there for a moment. There we go. Okay, good evening, beautiful people. Good evening, Libby. Good evening, Chelsea. Massive, massive day for me. Busy day for me. Starlink was down for a little bit, so that has pushed me behind. And then groceries were delivered literally 30 seconds ago. So I've quickly pulled them in before the crows get to them. And here I am, not looking at all flustered, I hope. So it was interesting. I had a conversation with somebody earlier today about the label, and so many people buy into the label and it becomes their identity. So I really want to talk about that. Hello, beautiful Haiti. How are you, Valerie? Good evening. Good evening. So there's a moment that changes everything. And it's not when life gets easier, because the thing is too, we have to understand that we have moments where things are easy, but for as long as we're alive, challenges will remain. Things will come to stretch us a little bit more. But the moment that actually changes our lives is when we realize that your experience might be real, but your story about it is optional. And when you think about it, it's the meaning that you apply to it that ends up being the contributor, the biggest contributor to what it is you feel about it anyway. So the story about it is always optional. There are so many people that are walking around carrying labels like they are their birth names, carrying the diagnosis like it is literally set in stone as part of their destiny, carrying the trauma like it is literally a part of their identity. And this is a conversation I had with somebody earlier today, because during that initial consult, it was constantly, I have this and I am this, and none of it was positive. So the conversation was all about the fact that, you're plugging yourself in, you're losing your power to an identity that really doesn't serve you. And if you're saying that you want to be free and you're saying you want to be healed, the language you're currently using is not going to help. So I really want to say something in the hope that it will shake people awake, but I mean it with love. I always mean what I do with love. You can absolutely honor what happened without becoming what happened. There is a point in time where something terrible may have happened, whether it's a traumatic event, whether it's a diagnosis that has been put upon you, whatever it is, there is the moment that it happened. But what you do with that, so at a point in time you were the victim perhaps, but then what you continue to do with it moving from that point forward is entirely up to you. Because often what happens, and the same thing with this client earlier today, that she had become her own perpetrator. So it's really important that we recognize where the thing happened, the story that we've applied to it since, and are we the ones that in fact continuing to be our own perpetrator? So there is what happened, but then there's what you continue to do with what happens. That's super important. You can absolutely acknowledge what it is you've been through without building a home inside of it. You can absolutely receive a diagnosis without marrying into it and, making it a life sentence. Because a diagnosis absolutely can be useful. It can guide treatment. It can be the very instigator that changes your life, that changes how you live for the good. It can have you making better and healthier food choices. It can make you realize that you don't want to stay a slave to a job that you hate, but instead you want to actually live your life purpose, your mission, your vision, and all the things you've always wanted to do. So the diagnosis can be that incredible guide that helps you get back into alignment with what it is you're here to do. It can explain patterns, it can give language, but the moment that you own it as an identity, the moment you start saying, I am this, I have this, I will always be this, I have to take these for life, there's no cure, all these things, this is just who I am, then that's when it stops being information and it literally starts becoming your cage. You literally become self imprisoned by your own story. And I know that some people hear this and think, well, Joanne, that's freaking harsh, or you don't understand, you don't have the kind of pain that I do, or whatever it is, right? You can absolutely get defensive about where you're at. I myself have gone through health challenges. I myself have gone through some really horrific traumatic events. But I stand before you as someone that chose to not be bound by those experiences, by those stories, by the diagnosis, and instead chose to get up, to realize it was a message for change, to become more, and to be really mindful of the language that I was using so that I could bring myself back into absolute alignment. So I stand before you not as someone that's not ever experienced anything terrible, but as somebody that saw that there was another way, because I didn't want to become a prisoner of my own mind and the stories that are in my mind. Because if that's where you are, that's your point of creation, because it's those stories that are creating the feelings, and the feelings are what it is that you radiate. And of course, what you radiate is what you attract. So you keep on attracting more of the same. So I'm not saying that you're not going through anything. I'm not saying that it's you're what I am saying is that you're not a slave to the stories in your head. You are not a slave to it. I'm saying something that is so much more empowering. I'm saying something that has a capacity to change your life by recognizing that you are, in fact, a meaning making machine. And the meaning you make becomes the life that you live. The meaning you make becomes the life that you live. And this is such a big topic, but I have to be mindful of the time because I do have the I Am Woman call straight after this. We are on module 7 tonight for I Am Woman. So there's this old experiment in psychology that I want to use as a really great example here. And I had heard about it some time ago. And what was interesting, just recently, I saw some TikTok videos, but they've completely changed the factual information from the study. So in the TikTok post, they're saying that there's a whole group of people that went for this interview. That's actually not what really happened. But just to keep it really nice and short, they did this brilliant study in 1980 where they made women believe they had a visible facial scar. They even let them see it in the mirror. So it was all done with makeup, right? These women signed up for this opportunity. They had, with fantastic theatrical makeup, they had this really horrific scar put onto their face, and they've looked at it and they've actually really gone, oh my God, look at my face. I look nothing like I did before, etc. And what they then had to do, so they've actually seen this scar in the mirror, and then without telling them, right before, right before they went in to have an interaction, it wasn't an interview, but right before they went in to have an interaction with somebody who also was just a subject in this experiment. So basically the makeup artist said, oh, right before you walk through that door, I just want to touch up your makeup again. And what they did with touching up the makeup was actually just blended it in. So then now they've actually walked in. The last thing they saw was this scar on their face, really horrific scar on their face. And then right before walking in, it was actually just blended in. And they had no idea because the last thing they saw was themselves in the mirror with this scar. So they've gone in for this interaction. Now, here's the fascinating thing. The women still thought the scar was there, and they came back from that interaction describing more awkwardness than they've ever felt before, more discrimination than they have experienced before, more negative treatment than they had experienced before. Because when you expect to be judged, your brain starts collecting evidence. So the last thing they saw, and I really want you to understand this, the last thing they saw was a scar on their face. The scar looked terrible. They didn't feel as confident as they normally would have. Excuse me. They didn't feel as confident as they normally would have. They've gone in for this interaction, and because they're feeling awkward and they've got issues with judgment, etc., right? They came back collecting evidence of what it is that they were sure they would experience, even from the neutral moments, moments that would not normally bother them. They took that to be a negative. So whether you love that study or whether you want to pick it apart, you can go looking for it. Even if you want to go picking it apart, the deeper message still lands like lightning. When you expect to be judged, you become an expert at finding proof. You become the expert at finding proof. What happens is you start to scan, you start to interrupt, you fill in the blanks, and you fill in the blanks not with confidence, you fill in the blanks with fear. You turn uncertainty into rejection. You turn neutral faces into faces of disapproval, or people looking down at you, or people going, "Oh my God, what's going on with her, and how could she walk out without, perhaps even like covering up her scar and things like that." Right? You make up those stories. Silence, the moments of silence, become abandonment because you're convinced that somebody's thinking something terrible about you. A delayed reply becomes, they don't care, or they're just looking for a moment to move away so they don't have to interact with me anymore, or they're feeling sorry for me, or whatever your story is. And we have to understand that this all happens because your nervous system learned a survival skill years ago. It predicts pain before pain arrives. Prepare yourself. You won't feel the pain so much if you know that you're going to walk into a space and be judged. You'll put your guard up nice and early. Please let me know if this is landing. Let me know if this is landing for you. Because here's the thing, here's where it gets really dangerous. If you live in that filter long enough, you don't just experience life through that lens, but you start building your identity from that space as well. You become the story. So no longer have you had the experience and then have a story based on the experience, but now you become the story. And some of you, if I took your trauma story away, you wouldn't even know who you are without it. And I know I'm speaking like right now on the live. I know most of you here on the live and you're awakened people, so I know you know better, but I'm sure you know people. You have people around you, you know people. And for those that watch the replay, I want you to really have a look at yourself, all the people that you know, and you start to realize that, oh my God, yeah. Everything, their identity is the story, so much so that they don't know who they are without it. Because what's happening is they're caught up in that habit. They've been focusing on surviving for such a long time that the survival self becomes the whole self, but that's not who you are in wholeness. You were never meant to live as a wound with a pulse. You're so much more than that. You were never meant to live as a diagnosis with a name. You were meant to live as you. So tonight I want to deliver this as a really loving challenge. If your first introduction to the world is your pain, if your mind loops the same chapter every single day, you've got to change it. If you introduce yourself by name and then within a few minutes you're already telling a pain story, what are you setting yourself up for? If you're at home alone and you're going about your day and this story is constantly looping, what is the energy? You're obviously triggering emotions with that, and frustrations and anger and all those things, and you're sending that frequency out to the universe. And you have to understand that you are always a point of attraction. So what are you doing if your mind loops the same chapter every single day? If you meet new people and lead with everything that went wrong, what vibe are you putting out there? If you replay and replay and replay constantly, what are you doing? So I want you to ask yourself, is this healing? Is it truly healing if I continue to tell my story? And this is where traditional talk therapy, I have an issue with it, because week in and week out, you go and you keep on refeeding your story and making the story bigger. Is that truly healing, or is it rehearsing? Is it healing, or is it rehearsing? Is it really processing, or is it strengthening a program that really doesn't serve you? Is it truth, or has it become a trance? Because your body is always listening. Your cells respond to what you repeatedly tell them is true. And if you are constantly replaying the stories, whether it's in your mind or out aloud, your body is listening. Your body doesn't know the difference between a real or imagined experience. Every cell in your body is taking it on board to be truth. And yes, stress impacts the body. Yes, trauma stores in the system. Absolutely stores in there if it isn't processed. You have to do the healing work. You have to go in there and process it. And we absolutely do not bypass pain. It's not about ignoring it. But there's a difference between feeling and feeding your pain. There's a huge difference between that and healing and releasing the past. Massive difference. Massive difference. When you change your past, when you heal your past, you literally change your personality. And when you change your personality, you are changing your personal reality. And the moment you decide to stop owning the past stories, the moment you stop owning the labels, the moment you stop owning the diagnosis, when you stop owning the label, stop owning your story as me, like I have, and me, and this is like my story and all the things that come with it. When you stop doing that, you're not invalidating your experience. You are literally upgrading your identity. You move from this is who I am to this is what I have been experiencing. Can you see? Completely different. You're no longer owning it, but you're saying, I experienced this in the past. So to your mind and to the cells in your body, it's an old story. It's not who you are now. And when you do that, you start to change yourself. You change how you relate to it. You change the literally the physical experience you have. And that is the very beginning of freedom, because it has to start with you being prepared to let go of the story. It's the same thing with a CTC session. You have to be ready for change. You have to be ready to let go, because when you're ready to let go and when you're ready for change, then the freedom, you have the potential to have the freedom that you desire. So I hope that's landing. And I share this with you not because I want you just to think positive, not because I want you just to pretend, but because I want you to reclaim authorship of your life. You have the potential to change your mind. And when you change your mind, absolutely everything changes. You were given the gift of free will and choice. You don't need to keep carrying the labels. You don't need to keep carrying the diagnosis. You don't need to keep carrying the stories, the roles, the stories that say, you know, Cancer Raised University, these are just examples, not me. I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm broken, I'm traumatized, I'm too much, I'm not enough, I'm unlovable. Whatever your stories are, you know, I'm always the one that gets hurt, I can't trust, I'll always struggle. All the things that go through your mind when you start to realize that they are stories, but not who you are in your truth. And you start to reprogram, even if you catch yourself thinking or saying something even slightly negative. You've got 3 seconds. You say, cancel, erase. I used to think that. However, now, and replace it with a positive. However, now, I am full of amazing health, energy, and vitality. Everything I touch is a success. I am a magnet for divine prosperity. I love myself. I love my family, my friends. I have the most incredible, loyal, and supportive people in my world. It's as simple as saying cancel a race, catch yourself out. Don't ride the wave, interrupt the wave. Make it known that it's an old command and replace it with something new, because that is when you start to rewire yourself for so much good that is waiting to come to you. I have some messages here. Landing, I caught myself in that today. Someone hasn't replied for a few days. After I promised to follow up on something for them, worked on rewiring, focusing. Beautiful. Got your power back. Yeah. And it's super, super important that you do that. Catch yourself out, recognize that you are the one losing your power to this person, to this story, to this experience, to this place, whatever it is, and recognize in losing your power to it, you are actually feeding it and fueling it. Pull your power back here into present time. And with that clarity of mind, you have the power and the capacity to make a more empowered choice. So it's about learning to not put yourself into the story, but to then become an observer of it. You become the observer of it. And then in that space, you decide what it is that you want to do. Because you don't want to lose power anymore. You want to regain your power. You want to stand taller. You want to become a greater version of you than you were before. So I think I will actually keep it there. There was a whole lot more. Interrupt the wave. Love it. Beautiful. That's what you need to do. Heidi, we interrupt the wave, because the thing is, when we get caught up in our emotions, we know that this too shall pass. You know, we get down and out, we're swept up in it, we're allowing all these emotions to come up, we're feeding them, we're fueling them. But we know at some point it will pass. But then the thing is, once it passes, we actually haven't changed anything. We've just done the same old cycle that we used to do before. But if we interrupt that wave, we start to reprogram ourselves, and we start to recognize that we don't have to live the way that we used to. We don't have to feel the way that we used to. And we certainly don't need to keep attracting to ourselves the very things that we used to. You are powerful beyond measure. You are the author of your life. You get to pivot. You get to make changes. Things don't have to stay same old, same old. So you get to change things, right? The I am anxious gets to become I've been experiencing anxiety. I used to experience anxiety, but now I've got this incredible, skill where the moment I feel it coming, I stop, I take some deep breaths in, I make sure the exhale is a little longer than the inhale. And within like a couple of seconds, I'm at peace. And then you move from that to I choose peace, as though peace is all there is. That was actually a quote that I wrote in my first book, Back on Track. And I honestly and truly believe we have too many choices, right? We can choose, when it comes to our emotions, we can choose anger, disgust, shame, hate, frustration, anxiety, love, peace. We can choose so many things. But could you imagine what would happen to your psyche and in your body if you made peace your only choice? Because if peace was your only choice, then you would choose peace, as though peace is all there is. So then no matter what happens, you stay in a state of peace. No matter what happens, you see the path ahead clearly. No matter what happens, and the things happen, challenges happen. But no matter what happens, you see a way through the challenge far more easily and quickly than anybody else does. So look at the language you use. Look at the stories that you're holding on to. And know that you have a choice. Language is not just language. Language is programming. And when you change the structure of your language, you change the structure of your identity. You change absolutely everything. Okay. I think I have covered enough to have a deep aha land for you. I'm going to quickly get organized for module 7 of I Am Woman. So I'll freshen up my tea, pack some of the groceries that need to go into the fridge, and I will be, for those, and I know many of you ladies are here in the I Am Woman program, I will look forward to seeing you there very, very soon. Much love.